What's up, booktube? It's Leah Cooper, and today I am going to bring you my Classic Women in SFF Readathon TBR. This is a readathon hosted by Maya over at Maya Reads. I will leave a link to her announcement video down below. It's running from April 1st to April 11th, I believe. If I'm wrong, I'll put a correction here. So this readathon is focused on reading SFF and horror, speculative fiction, written by women, published either in 2000, the year 2000 or earlier. And it's one of my favorite readathons. I've been looking forward to it all year. And April is going to be a super, super busy month for me in school, but I still really want to try to participate in this readathon. And I highly suggest y'all check it out. Like if you're new to SFF, or if you read SFF and like you just read new releases, challenge yourself to read some older books, because there are some like amazing old books out there, right? I forgot to pull out one of the books for my TBR. The other thing I'm going to talk about is the rest of my April TBR. So we'll start with the Classic Women in SFF TBR, which there are 3 challenges this year, and one of them is a repeat from last year, and that is to read 3 books published in 3 consecutive decades. So like 80s, 90s, or like 70s, 80s, 90s, or something like that. And I am thinking I'm just going to go ahead and do that challenge again. I successfully completed it last year, and I think I'm going to try to do it this year. I have 2 things for sure I know I'm going to read, and then the third one is kind of up in the air. So the first one I'm going to read is Spindle's End by Robin McKinley. This is off my 15 to read in 2021 TBR, and is published in 2000, so it's the absolute cutoff for this readathon. And I'm counting that as its own decade, the 2000 decade. This is, I think, a Sleeping Beauty retelling, and I've never read Robin McKinley, but I feel like this might be a good place to start, and it's on the TBR. So we're going to go with that one. And then for the 90s, I've got a couple of possibilities. One of those is a middle grade book, and that is The Boggart by Susan Cooper. So Susan Cooper wrote the Dark is Rising kids series, which I read all of in like 2019 / early 2020. I think I finished it in 2020. But those books are like Oversea, Understone, The Dark is Rising, Silver on the Tree, Green Witch, those books. And they were like, they had their highs and lows. Some of them weren't super great, but they were like entertaining, and I'd always wanted to read all the series because I only ever read the first one when I was a kid. So this is a ghost story. And like, gosh, look at that old ass computer those kids are on. Let me see if I can get it in focus. So, centuries old and thousands of miles from home, when Emily and Jess Volnick's family inherits a remote, crumbling Scottish castle, they also inherit the Boggart, an invisible, mischievous spirit who's been playing tricks on residents of the castle for generations. Then the Boggart is trapped in a roll-top desk and inadvertently shipped to the Volnick's home in Toronto, where nothing will ever be the same for the Volnicks or the Boggart. So this is like a paranormal-ish middle grade book from the mid 90s. I think it was 1993. So I could read this, and this would be because it's a kid's book, it would be like an easy read, which I'm leaning towards because next month is going to be rough. I also think that this is a standalone. I don't think this is part of any series, and I love reading some like I like expanding my reading into like middle grade, because I think it's a really underrepresented kind of age category on booktube, and also they're just kind of fun and nostalgic. This would definitely have been like a book of my childhood if I had owned it, so that is an option. The other thing I could read is I don't think this is cheating. This is just me being realistic. The other thing I'm going to do is read some older short stories. So I have this short story collection called Impossible Things from Connie Willis. And Connie Willis is like a Nebula Award winner. I want to say mostly science fiction, but I'm not entirely sure. There are 15 or 16 stories in this book, and most of them were published and they were all published in the 80s or the 90s. So I want to read at least one short story from this collection. I think that would be good. And I can either read one from the 90s, and this could count as the 90s, or I can, if I read this for the 90s, I can read one from the 80s, and it would count towards the 80s. Okay? Easy enough. My other options are, for the 80s, I could also read Down Below Station by C.J. Cherryh. A part of me really wants to do this, but another part of me looks at how long this book is, which my copy is a very old mass market paperback, which is like 430 pages with real small type. And realistically, I don't think I will get to this. But this is in the back of my head as a possible 80s option. For the 90s, one other thing I am thinking about reading is The Spirit Ring by Lois McMaster Bujold. This is a standalone fantasy novel by Bujold, and it's one of technically it's one of 5 of her fantasy books I haven't read, because I think she's come out with 2 new Penrick novels since I was last reading the Penrick novels, and I'm not caught up on that series. But of her older works, technically this is one of 3 I haven't read. And I really, really, really want to read this before I do my Lois McMaster Bujold fantasy, where to start with her, etc. But I need to get a copy of it because it's not at my library. I don't think I have any recommendations to purchase left. So I need to find I'd really like to find an old used copy of it, but that seems impossible. And I think I checked with my old employer and they don't have any listed online. So I don't quite know if I can get my hands on this. This came out in 1992, so it would also count as an option for the 90s. And so with this book and with Down Below Station, which I should probably just take off, I should probably just put it back on my shelf, because we all know I'm not going to get to it. But with either of those kinds of books, the Connie Willis again can fill in for the alternate decade. So that's kind of tentatively my TBR for the Classic Women in SFF Readathon. Like I said, I'll leave all the links down below so you can check it out. There are other challenges. There's one, I think it's read 3 books, one in each genre or one in a different genre. So you could do fantasy, sci-fi, horror. There's another one where you focus on a specific decade. You read 3 books from the same decade, that kind of stuff. So if any of that interests you, check it out because it's fun. And last year I read some really awesome things. I read the first Dragon Riders of Pern book for that, and I also read The Forgotten Beasts of Eld, which I loved. I loved that book, and so I was really excited to be inspired to read some of my old books that I've got on my shelf because they're really good. Okay. So then for the rest of April, I have 2 books for school I need to read, actual books. The first one is The Fire and the Tale by Giorgio Agamben. My copy is translated by Lorenzo Chiesa. And this is a literary studies / philosophy text on, what does the back say? What is at stake in literature? Can we identify the fire that our stories have lost but that they strive at all costs to rediscover? And what is the philosopher's stone that writers with the passionate alchemists struggle to forge in their word furnaces? For Giorgio Agamben, who suggests that the parable is the secret model of all narrative, every creation tenaciously resists being created, thereby giving each work its strength and grace. So it's a philosophy text on writing for writers. Luckily, it's very small, so I gotta read that. And then I also have to read The Childhood of Jesus by J.M. Coetzee, which I have ordered and has not arrived yet, and I am a little stressed out about the delivery date on that book compared to when I'm supposed to read it for class, but I have to read that. Then, like I mentioned in my wrap-up, I did not get to reading Mossflower by Brian Jakes, which is one of my 15 books to read in 2015 books. So I need to try to read this month, maybe? ? And then I also did not get to Simon the Cold Heart by Georgia Hare, which was the March pick from that TBR. Am I going to get to those books? Fuck if I know. I am also still reading The House of Sticks, which I will by Derek Kunston, which I will finish in April and hopefully post a full review of. So keep your eyes peeled for that. And then I want to continue reading Lady Hotspur, but I'm probably not going to get to that in April. I'm probably going to push that back into like May or June. And then the last thing, I feel like I should pull another book out of this TBR jar and like hold myself better accountable to reading it. Like, yes, technically Spindle's End is in this jar, but there's 15 books in this jar and there's 12 books in the month. So technically I should be reading more than one a month, not 0. So let's go ahead and pull one out real fast and we'll just see what it is. Who knows? Maybe it'll be Spindle's End. Wouldn't that be funny? It's not. Okay, the book I pulled out is Jeeves and the Feudal Spirit, which at the very least is very short. Like, this is very short. So it's conceivable I could read this. God, that type is tiny and cramped, but it's short. So maybe if I need something little. Oh, this book, no, it's still bigger. Okay. So maybe if I need something like little and diverting to read, I'll try to read that. You know, the more I talk about this, the more I'm like really leaning towards reading the Boggart for the readathon, just because it's gonna be busy. So that's kind of what I'm looking at, plus the ebooks and the book that hasn't come in yet, and I'll probably have another audiobook to listen to. God, that's a lot. That's like so much compared to like the 500 pitiful pages I read last month, but there you go. Oh, I'm also still reading The Sanguine Solution, which is my own book, which I am reading for research purposes. So tack that on too. Let me know if you're participating in the classic Women in SFF Readathon. I really hope I'm getting the order of those words right. Every time I say it, I feel like I'm saying it wrong, but I've said it so many times. Anyway, let me know if you're participating, what you are thinking about reading. If you have posted a TBR, let me know so I can go look at it or watch the video, you know, and I will see you guys later. Hopefully I will have some reviews to do, because I've been reading stuff that I want to review and I haven't done a review in a really long time. So yeah, thanks for watching. I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye.